Hi, and welcome to the 24th episode of Keen Minds. I'm Jen, aka Takata Saiko.
And I am Tessa. I know it's still me, but have a horrible cold, so I'm going to sound very different. Excuse the nasal. And probably I won't be doing very long sentences either because I don't have a lot of breath.
And of course, I will talk. Heaven knows that I do talk a lot.
This is a good one for you to do. 'Cause
Oh well. Oh darn. Jen gets to talk. Sorry, guys.
and here we're covering the second episode of Redemption, Kevin Jensen.
And I honestly, I had the weirdest reaction to this. I liked it last night. But I didn't really like it until my second round through. I don't know if I just picked up on more things the second round through, if I was just tired last night. I don't really know, but I liked it a lot better the second on my rewatch.
I've had several things like that happen to me with a few of the Blacklist. It happened when Alistair Pitt, because it was such a condensed show, there was so much in it that the first time I watched it, I hated it. And then I did a second rewatch and a third rewatch. And by the third rewatch, I'm like, oh, I really liked it. It's just a lot of it. And I think sometimes when you're expecting something different and you expect heavy mythology, you get like, where was it? And you kind of go expecting something, and it's not exactly what you get.
And I think that's definitely an issue that I had with it was that, and we can talk about this in later in the podcast, but I expected for us to get a lot of mythology with each episode. And we really didn't get a lot with it. And there was some, but we didn't get, at least as we know now. We may come back later and go, oh my gosh, we got so much and we didn't know it. Kind of like Cape May in the Blacklist, all the things that we didn't know we were getting at the time.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's always a possibility, and it would be right up the Blacklist alley to do that. But coming out of the episode last night, I didn't feel like we got a lot of mythology there. And I'm going, but you don't understand. I didn't get Tom and his dad. I didn't get any mythology. I want these things. These are things I want from my show.
See, I got immediately the little birthday party for Kevin, and I'm like, oh yeah, thank you, I'm good. It wasn't very evident, but it was good.
Well, let's just start out with the mythology, and then we'll go into the characters, because
Mm-hmm.
that is such a huge thing with the Blacklist. And I know that the writers and a lot of the actors and various sundry people have been saying, we're going to keep the mythology separate. Redemption can stand alone, etc., etc., etc. And I just, 2 episodes in, I don't believe you guys. I'm sorry.
Sorry, me
I'm
neither.
not calling you a liar. I'm just saying that these are the people that created Raymond Reddington and Red Speaks. So there's probably a loophole in there somewhere that you guys
Yeah,
have.
separate doesn't mean they don't share that. They may mean that they go in different ways, and we get different things. I don't. I think that whatever they may think, we may think they mean, it's not necessarily what they mean because they do red speak.
They
So
do so often.
it's like, yeah, I mean, we saw how much Scotty and Howard are like Red. I mean, they do the same thing. They do the same threats. They have exactly the same modus operandi. It's almost like they come from the same exact book. And that is a pretty big thing when we look at mythology, because it gives you like the template to look at things.
Or if you go past my crazy theory, I see Jen has crazy theories too every once in a while. Mine, that they all work together and that they were all involved together in some crazy spy thing. Then that makes a lot of sense that they would be very similar in that.
Yeah. Well, you have from points of contact that you cannot get away from is that Liz is Liz Scott, and probably she was Milhon because that's her father's name, and Susan is Susan Scott. So that Scott there means something. Whether they're cousins, whether they are relatives, whether the mothers use posing as a sisters, everything is possible, but you can't ignore that little connection there. You also have that tantalizing birthday party. And for those of you who didn't notice, there is Kevin, there is little Christopher, there's another boy, and there are three girls. Two brunette girls, one with her face to us and another one with her back to us, and an older blonde girl. Hello. Do we know anybody like that?
Could it possibly be Jennifer?
And Liz.
Yeah, very possible. How crazy would that be?
Because
Oh,
there is, I mean, they made so much about. This is the first time we felt like family, and there is a little something when Liz describes meeting Tom. She describes like she went to a cafe, a friend set them up. She went to the cafe. There was a full of people and conversations and music, and she saw him, and there was this silence, and the only people in the cafe were the two of them. And that is a pretty intense reaction, even for love at first sight. It almost to me speaks of something that tells you that person is somebody you know. So I think that there is a lot, and I'm sorry, I don't take you guys so literal. I've learned my lesson.
so we're not saying that we distrust you. We're saying that we question everything.
We learn to look at other meanings of words and sentences and not go by the because a lot of people forget about clues because they don't go for the actual phrase. They said, "Oh, but Red said this." That's not what Red said. Red said very specific thing, and they're translating into what they think the Red said. Wrong.
It goes back to the old phrase, yes, that's what you said, but that's not what you meant. And so, yeah, that both the characters and the writers. And hey, kudos to you guys. You're good at it. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that they're quite as separate in mythology as we
Mm-mm.
are being led to believe. And that's, I mean, that's fine. That's fine if they want to keep on that. I mean, until it pans out on the screen, I'm not going to believe it personally. And I love the fact that it looks like it's going to be deeply intertwined. That's a fantastic thing. It's one of the things about the Blacklist that I love so much is how deeply threaded this mythology is through everything, and how it just. I was talking about something earlier today. I said that I used to be really critical of the continuity in the Blacklist. My first year and a half in the fandom, I was super critical over it. I mean, I would go on tirades about how they need to hire someone strictly for continuity, that was their only job, and I mean, I was harsh about it. And then last summer, I think it was, I went and did a full rewatch of seasons 1 through 3. And I had to readjust my view because it's not a continuity issue. It's a we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle issue. And I was jumping to conclusions, as are many in the fandom all the time. I mean, it's what we do because we don't have all the pieces, and they're very good at making it look like they're giving you a full puzzle, and then you realize there's a whole nother like half that you're missing. And you're going, wait, I didn't know that wasn't there. And so it's
Yeah.
great. It always keeps you guessing. It always keeps you excited.
I,
But
I always I always find that the problem most people have with the continuity thing when people go into the tirades is there is there's two ways of approaching a problem. One, it is saying when one of the sets of facts is correct and the other is incorrect, or one person is telling the truth, the other person is lying. There is another one, which is not everybody knows everything. Red is not omniscient. However, he loves to make believe he is.
so, on to characters, and let's start with Kevin. Poor guy.
Oh,
I did not
yeah.
expect to lose him by the end of it. I actually kind of expected Tom to, be able to chat with him a little bit, and died.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It remind me of Liz with Andropov. You know that
yeah,
scene when
yeah.
he's on
Links
the
to the
ground.
past. Yeah, links to the past and
Yes,
losing it. Yep.
dying on you.
These people with these answers, they just keep dying. Not that I really think he would have had a lot of answers for Tom.
Maybe it would have been like the rabbit, just getting some memories loose. There was
And
something. I mean, this look on Tom's face when he said, "Oh, he was a friend of Christopher." It's like, oh, I have friends. Like
look, friends that don't want to shoot me. Liz will be so proud.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how would that conversation even go? Babe, I had a friend. Really? That's so cool. And now he's dead. It's like, this poor guy.
I think that they both know about losing people that have answers for them.
Yeah.
Were you tipped off that he was a spy?
Well, I didn't think he was entirely innocent when the first thing he did was trick his neighbor into letting him hide his laptop in her. I mean, because as a writer, I totally keep my laptop in my toilet, just, when I'm not using it. It's totally a writer thing.
Yep. I mean, he's a journalist, so it might be different. But keeping it in the toilet and then going to the neighbor, hiding it.
It could have been something that had to do with his article. And I was like, he may be a spy. But as it kept going, I'm looking at the roomie and going, this dude's CIA. Like, even before they were like, you were with the CIA, I'm like, he's CIA.
And the second when he read that thing and he said, it's all a lie, it's like, oh boy, yeah, you are so CIA. And this is not the first time. We've had in the Blacklist the father, the priest in Rosalind Denisov, that was not a priest. He was a CIA operative, Agent Burke. And we've had a number of other CIA agents that are covert, including probably Mira, because Mira spent her entire life as a covert agent.
Yeah. I wish we knew more about Mira. She's so cool. Did you think it was predictable in a good or a bad way with Kevin? That it was kind of obvious?
I think that people who are very conversant with the genre will immediately pick that up. It's inevitable because everybody, I mean, it's like Jason Bourne, you know what's going to happen because if you're a fan of the movies, you know what's going to happen. If you're a casual viewer, you're probably, oh, wow, he was a spy, huh?
Yeah. I mean, even Scotty didn't know.
Yeah, and even the CIA director said, I just found that this afternoon. And we have seen a lot of that disconnect in the CIA, like Peter Kotsiopoulos was trying to do something that apparently nobody else knew about it. He's a cabal member, nobody knew about it. The CIA was trying to kill Red. They've been trying to do covert operations everywhere. So it's an uneasy relationship between the FBI and the CIA.
Well, I think that's, at least in TV tropes, that's pretty normal. I have no idea what they're like in real life, but
attracted by treacherous.
At least in TV tropes, CIA and FBI are frenemies at best. They're on the same side, but they don't usually get along.
One of the things that would have been very interesting is if at the end they would have said, well, if we had known he was an agent, we would have gone about the rescue mission in a completely different way, because then we would have sent someone to the apartment that was not connected with us, that had not been seen, like Ness, and retrieve the laptop and the camera.
I'm not entirely sure, and I don't remember the guy's name that she was talking to. The guy that she kept going back to, I'm blanking on his name, but that was in the government that told her to stand down, and I loved that comment.
CIA guy, yeah.
I know he wasn't CIA. I think he was White House counsel.
Okay, like Baker.
Yeah, and Laurel Hitchin. She's White House counsel as well.
No, she is. Laurel Hitchin is an advisor.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. But she's up there with that group.
Yeah.
Regardless, I loved that comment, so that you can't come back in a hearing and say that I was not clear. Let me tell you, stand down. It was such a great line there. It said so much about Scotty, but I'm not entirely convinced that he wasn't pulling a little bit of, was not expecting her to go in anyway. And he was using that. He was covering his own butt by saying, do not go in, how dare you go in, making the phone calls to say, how dare you go in. But all the while,
they had to be expected, because if he broke down and said, sure, I am an agent, and started giving them information and compromising a lot of other assets, That was a pretty bad deal. So I think he was covering his own behind, and at the same time, he was, expecting Scotty to do exactly as she
Well,
did.
it works out perfectly for the government in that situation. You've got a private contractor that's government sanctioned. They've got the resources to go in. You tell them, don't do this. I know this is personal for you, but don't do this. And so if it goes badly, their butts are covered. If they go in and it goes well, they are government sanctioned. It's a win-win for the government on that. And
Hmm.
they get their intel. And so I personally think it was a little a little
That,
sketchier
that's
than they would
that's
have
the
liked.
same thing they said about Anna Copland. They already issued a burn order. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we disavow you and you're on your own, and that's it. And we just take everything down that you could have possibly known.
But that's the entire point of Halcyon, or for the Gray Matters division anyway, is that they go do the things that the government can't be caught doing.
Yeah.
So, but that's why Panna Baker met with Scotty so under the radar in season 3. I mean,
Hmm.
it took Tom going in with a camera and following Panna Baker to see them meeting. They, sometimes they can meet in the open, sometimes they can't. Depends on what they're discussing, probably.
Hmm.
And
How
so,
about Scotty?
I I love Scotty. I don't trust her, but I do love her. It was such an interesting episode for her. It was so deeply emotional, and oh my gosh, Famke's amazing. Like, I mean, I've always liked her really well. I'm a big X-Men fan, so I loved her as Jean Grey. And I mean, she will forever be Jean Grey in my heart. But she was just fantastic in this. The emotions that went with it. It was almost like losing Christopher all over again for her.
Exactly.
And I loved her, you got to see her outside of the office. She was talking to a longtime friend, the mother of a. I mean, you kind of get the impression she's, whether it was official or not. I mean, she was basically like a godmother to. I mean, she was Aunt Scotty, and so
Hmm.
it was really cool. And it was really awesome to see that. And then that video, the two videos that she watched, and I have a feeling that's how they're going to do a lot of their flashback stuff. Is her with her videos, her home videos. The first one of Kevin riding his bike.
Oh,
It's
that
just
was sweet.
oh, it was so sweet. And then you see the birthday party later, and it's just
And you got, remember how in Red's home movie we had Bubble Girl waving to him, and we had here Christopher waving to her. So
Christopher
that was
waved to
like
mommy. Yeah.
a nice parallels there.
Yeah. Do you
It
think
was a very emotional. Famke was a spectacular episode for to showcase her abilities.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, because Scotty is very difficult to read because she does give a different story to everybody. Like, I don't think we've heard her tell the same story twice. um
Mm-mm.
and so to see her in those moments when she's so emotionally compromised, we saw that also when the lawyers left her alone with the death certificate.
Hmm.
And because up until that, I was kind of in the pilot episode, I'm going, okay, she's saying that she misses her son. I wonder if she really did something, you know? Like, my brain went there, and until we saw her signing the death certificate, and the fact that she didn't have any eyes on her, and she was still, you know.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that with Tom in season 1, and I've mentioned before in the podcast that I actually came into the Blacklist when it was airing season 2, but I was not aware of what was going on with Tom, just that there was. And my statement was, until we found out more about where Tom came from and everything, that one of the biggest things for me that told me that he loved Liz before he came back from Dresden and everything was the fact that when he was alone in the house with no eyes on him, he did things for her.
And
There
he
were
was mad at her when she,
yeah, he
stood him up or things like.
yeah, he was hurt, he was, happy for her, he was sad for her, he wasn't putting on a show for anybody. It was just him. There was nobody to show, and that's how Scotty was sitting there with that death certificate, and she had no one to put a show on for, and yet, so those are going to be the real emotions that you see.
I think I read Scotty as somebody who she is so strong and, as Red said, so ruthless. A lot of the people that I've known that are that strong, they actually use what we see as weaknesses and expose them, because exposing a weakness openly gives you a control over it.
Yeah.
And that is, I think that that's what she does with that extreme weakness of her. So I'm not convinced that she didn't have something to do. I'm not convinced that the truth is very complicated towards Christopher's disappearance, but definitely Scotty and Howard were devastated, and their entire life was uh, changed, modified by this event.
No, I agree. I definitely agree with that. And so I thought it was an excellent episode for her, just cementing that just the real human side of Scotty and the real personal side of Scotty, especially because we do see her as the head of Halcyon most of the time, and here we saw Aunt Scotty,
Yeah.
And so, do you think she knows about Tom?
I am not sure. I am tending towards no, but I'm in a 50-40, in a 60-40 split now. 60 that she does and 40 that she does. She's a very, very hard to read character, which I love. I mean, she has to be.
Yeah, I agree. I tend towards the fact she doesn't know. Some of that comes from various interviews I've heard Famke give, saying stuff about, when she finds out she's going to be really hurt and stuff like that. And I think that probably sways me quite a bit. But overall, and especially this episode, I felt like she really didn't know. And I feel like there would have been more signs towards Tom if she did. I personally wonder if she's gonna find out that he's undercover for Howard long before or not long before, because it's 8 episodes long, but
Yeah.
before she's gonna find out he's an undercover operative inside her organization working for her husband who's not dead, before she finds out that he's her son.
I do wonder how that's going to play out, and I have a feeling about it. That how is that going to play out? I think it is because they're going to go into her house, into their house, into Liz and Tom, and they're going to see the box.
I do hope the box comes back. I do love that.
I think that's because that, I mean, the more I think about it, I don't think that the scar is connected. I mean, I know that they've been said things in interviews, but I count canon as what airs in the show. You said it once, and it was very well said. If it doesn't air in the show, it's not canon. And I think that, yes, it may be similar, but it's not the same. However, the envelope in the box with the little dots, that's the same. So I think that that was something taken with Tom. Or maybe, maybe if somebody took him and left him somewhere for safekeeping, that went with him. Something of the sort. Just because when the major picked him up, he didn't have anything, doesn't mean that they didn't go back to pick up the things that he owned.
I was gonna say, because he's good at hiding things, because he was kept on the boat with Liz for 4 months, and yet somehow still went back for his wallet afterwards that had the ultrasound in it. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, he stores things away like a chipmunk. I mean, I just imagine he's got all these little drop places all over, like every city he
remember
goes to.
Red and the storage units, and if they were both trained by Bud, that's probably a standard procedure. You got a lot of storing places where you put money, probably in different countries even.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I imagine so. And so, I mean, I don't think Tom's got it on that scale, and he may not even have it anymore, but I have a feeling that he did for a while at least, up until he came back and tried for the normal life with Liz. Because, the pilot for Redemption, you could tell with the fact that he was going and applying for teaching jobs all over again, and that he was done looking into this. He was going to focus on his normal life. He was going, nope, no normal life for you, Tom. Just stop trying.
Some people are not meant for that. I mean, it's like, that is like Liz. I mean, why doesn't she stop being an agent?
It's a different, they've got to find their brand of normal. I think that's the key, is that it's not that they don't get their normal. It's that they're not going to get a picket fence, like John said one time.
Yeah, unless a picket fence comes with a tower with
Yeah,
machine guns and, snipers,
guards.
yeah,
That's
and
fine.
guards, yeah, and
Um,
grenades, yeah. Then they
but
will.
but it's their version of normal versus the American dream version of normal. And so
Mhm.
it's who they are. It's what they are at their core, and they would both get so bored. Because and something interesting I found that we found out last week on Redemption is that Tom was running ops at least off and on through his first marriage with Liz, which I did not think was happening. And so that's one thing I'm having to readjust now because in 2012 he did the op with Anna. And
And remember, that's when the passport under Pierre Louis Anton was marked,
mm,
and Liz, and he was going to Paris, and we think he was just going to Paris, but we don't know.
that was in 2010. No, that had to
No?
have been no because well I mean there might have been a trip to Paris, but his they got married 2010.
Oh,
So
that's right. That is the
yeah.
bachelor party.
Yeah, that was the bachelor party.
So in
Regardless,
2012,
he
yeah,
has a bunch of passports, a lot of stuff in them, and so he was doing stuff.
and the funny thing is, I don't think he was doing them for Bill McCready, because Bill McCready tells the Malaysian minister, once inside, no contact. And so he wouldn't have been sending Tom, in a big contract like that. He wouldn't be sending Tom where he can get killed or maimed or something. It would have been. I bet that this is the CIA, contacting him directly and saying, "We need this guy."
Yeah, it's gonna take it being on screen for me to believe that one. I cracked someone up. I don't remember who it was. Someone said they were listening to me last week. And how I was just so adamantly against the CIA. And she was apparently I cracked someone up with how adamantly I'm against it. So I was just like, nope, not believing it, nope. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much what I said.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
That's accurate. That's how I reacted. So- Oh, it was. You had said something. I said, don't care. Nope.
Yep, I know. There are a few things that you are still, there are other things you've started to consider, which is pretty good. I mean, my theories are pretty wild, and but I mean that is a no for you. Everybody got their no's,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Hey,
We'll see if
difference
they
of
pan
opinion.
out.
And then what'll happen will happen on screen, and one of us will be right, one of us will be wrong, or we'll both be
We'll both be
wrong, or
right. Yeah. Or
both of
we'll
us a
both
little
be right.
right.
Yeah. What do you think about that emotional roller coaster of Tom? This was a very different Tom.
It is and it isn't. And I love this. I love this so much. Okay, so one of the things that I found absolutely fascinating digging into Tom's character, looking back into season 1 and into season 2, is how he reacts under pressure. Because regularly, under regular pressure, when he's in the field, when he's got a gun to his head, he is smooth as they come. A pilot episode for last week for Redemption. Scotty's going, you've got to pack it up. They're coming down there. And he's just like, all right, still clicking on his, getting the information, not dropping a sweat. He's totally fine. Walks back up and he's like, yeah, I got it. Of course I got it, And, but if you were to put him in a situation like season 1 in the finale, he was in a horrible situation, which Liz was in danger, everything. And so he makes a stupid decision and ends up kidnapping Liz at gunpoint. And it ends up being a stupid decision because he gets gut shot and kept for 4 months on a boat. I mean, regardless on if he had any other options or not, he probably should have found one. But
I doubt there was one.
when he is emotionally compromised with something close to him that means something to him personally, and that's a fairly small, bit of, that could actually affect him that strongly emotionally, he reacts very differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much more emotional reaction than he gives. So this is something, even though he doesn't seem to remember Kevin, he's a link to the past. He's something incredibly close. Whether he could have gotten answers, whether it could have just been somebody he could have gotten to know that he had once known. Regardless,
a link to me is a link to reconnecting with a time when he was wanted and loved and safe.
yes. And it's almost like it's proof that this is true. because he can't remember any of this. He can't remember being loved. And so it's like Kevin is living proof because he knew him during that time. And it's someone that's not Scotty or Howard, that could be lying to him.
Yeah. It's a friend too. It's a friend. It's a peer. It's somebody that, he, probably playing the beach with. Something that made him normal instead of the operative. It's a link to the humanity, not to the operative.
And so I think that that's why he had such a dramatic response to it. It's very in character for Tom, actually.
Well, he had very interesting reaction. He had that reaction when he sees what Dumont has, for the truck, and that is.
I loved it. He's so excited because you see him kind of peek around, and he's so stoic in this because he's got so many secrets that he's keeping that he's not letting anybody anywhere close to him on this team. But he kind of peeks around to see, how this whole thing is set up, and you see that little grin of his, like, oh, this is clever. I like clever,
yeah.
and he comes back around.
We've seen that before when Aram realizes that he already got half of the thing with the radios figured out and all that. So he's really a good tech guy. In a limited way. He's not Dumont, he's not Aram, but he is definitely conversant with it.
Yeah.
Go with the high intelligence that the Major of the West would never have got him.
Exactly.
The audition, on the other hand, that was hilarious.
Oh my gosh, the audition. Okay, so I could not watch it the first time or the second time or go through. I just put a GIF post online earlier tonight when we were recording this on Friday night. I couldn't even GIF it without cracking up through the whole thing. I'm just... the guy that played the Proud Papa, he's been on everything. He was on Stargate, he was on Once Upon a Time. I've seen him on so many things. We joke that he's on everything. And so when he popped up here, I was like, oh, I love him. And then that happened. And Tom's just got this look like, what's happening here?
And then he turns around and says, oh, that's great, and applauds. And it's like, yep, that's what he's doing. He has to get the job done, so that's what he's doing.
But everything's just a little bit delayed. And that's my favorite part of it. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to be reacting here. Clap. Yay. Smile. Yeah. Like, it's a convincing smile, but it's just a smidge delayed. And then that look he gives when the guy's turning away and he's just going, oh my gosh. But...
it's also interesting what he does when he's the one that, because Solomon and Nez are like, are you crazy? This guy went back. And Tom gets it, which puts a very different separation between the kinds of agent that Tom is and the kind of agent that Nez and Solomon are, which brings you to Solomon and Nez are really mercenaries. They go where the money is. So I do think that Tom is not a mercenary. He always went where it was either challenging or fun, or he felt that, that's where he had to go to make himself better. But that he preferred things that meant something.
Well, I mean, he made the comment in season 3 of the regular show. He said, what was the line? It was, we don't help,
We don't pull people up. We
watch them drown. And I'm tired of hurting people, Gina. Yeah. And so I do think that he got into St. Regis with this idea that he was going to be a James Bond. And I think sometimes he was. I do think that sometimes that he was very... his goal of being with Liz was to protect her.
Yeah, and he was with the Germans to find out who murdered Sarah Hastings, and he was, and most of the stuff that he have done is either information gathering or protecting. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that he has been hired to kill, but why hire him? He's a top operative to kill.
Yeah. Hire someone like Matthias Solomon, who can get the information through enhanced interrogation and then, probably never see you again. But yeah, I loved the quote what he said when they're in the car. He said, a guy risks his life because the work needs doing. I'm not saying that was right. I'm not saying he was right to go, but I get it. And all I could think right there was that he was talking, yes, he was talking about Kevin Jensen, but he was also talking about himself. The work needed doing. Tom was the only one that can go in. He was the only one that Howard could go to send into Halcyon to see if Scotty is as terrible as Howard's afraid she is. He's the only one that could do it. He was the only one that Howard trusts. And so the work needed doing, and even though it might or might not have been the right decision, he went. And so he does get that on a very, very deep level. And I think that it really, especially when he found out that Kevin was an operative, wouldn't that have been amazing if it came out that he was an operative and he had lived and he was stationed back in DC and Tom's just like, be my friend again,
Yeah, I think that also was a very interesting thing for me. The fact that even with his operatives, Kevin didn't say that he was an operative, because had he said it, they would have approached the whole thing very differently. They were treating him as it would have made a lot of sense for them what he was doing, and they would have probably helped him in plan the mission different. So I think it was an excellent way of putting something that it's true of a Blacklist, and I think it's going to be true of Redemption, that sometimes secrets meant to protect end up being the ones that hurt.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that Kevin knew who to trust. I mean, he didn't know Solomon or Nez, and he didn't know that he knew Tom. I mean, these are just, to him, they were three strangers sent over. I mean, okay, so they're from Halcyon. What if they just were saying they were from Halcyon? I mean, yes, they were helping him, but how was he to know that they weren't...
Oh, not him, but the upper ups. If they had said, listen, okay, so he's an operative, and you go in, we have complete deniability and see if you can get him out. Yeah. That would have been a better way to deal with it than what they did.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think it's typical. That's why Red says when he meets Mira, attracted by treacherous. And they always trying to kill him, and they give the order to kill him in Ruslan Denisov. And, the CIA is always after Red.
Yeah, a lot of people are always after Red. So, Solomon. Moving on to Solomon. How did you feel about that whole I mean, it wasn't the last scene, but that scene when Kevin died and Tom's fixation on that, and Solomon was the one to pull him back? Because it was interesting. Nez kind of gives him this look, like, are you going to do something about this?
I have a feeling that Nez is really not an emotional person. I think she has had some reactions to children that are emotional, but in general, she seems, fairly cold and clear-minded. She's not really an emotional operative, which is probably why she's alive and she's so good.
I was gonna say she's very good, but no, I agree, and that's kind of, I mean, because like when he died, you looked at her, the camera panned in on her, and she looked struck by it. But, I mean, she wasn't going to go full meltdown like Tom did. I mean, and I think that kind of threw her.
I think there is a twofold there. There is a one that they're, as operative, they're not really used to failing.
Yeah.
They're an elite unit. They only get the top cases. They're not used to failing. They're used that if they tell them, go and get this guy alive, you go get that guy alive no matter what. And the second thing is, I think they both have had in the past, him and Solomon and possibly Tom too, people that they worked in the field and they have died. So I think it is very much something that they all know what it feels like. And I went back to Liz and Andropov because Andropov had answers. In a way, Kevin may not have had answers, but maybe he could have interrogated him about Christopher or found some answers or a link to the past. So I think for Tom, it was a double or triple whammy. He had failed in a mission. He had failed in a mission that was personal to him, that was personal to his mother, because I think that he is starting to care about his mother.
Oh, I think so.
And then there was the issue that it was a link to the past dying. So it was, from any point you look at it, it was very, very hard.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was an interesting choice to have Solomon be the one to pull him around. I didn't see it as out of character because I saw it as this was just my personal view of it. Solomon saw what was happening, he knew what was happening, and he reacted in the way that was going to quickly bring Tom back down to the normal level
Hmm.
and bring him and not allow him to spiral any further. If he had just, cuffed him on the back of the head and said, "Pull it together, dude," that wouldn't have worked. That wouldn't, a snarky comment at the time would not have worked. He grabbed him by the face, kind of shook him a little, and said, "Stop." Like, you can't hear Eddie's voice at the point, but, it's blatantly obvious if I can't read lips very
Yeah.
well, but, I mean, you can read that. And just pulls him and looks him straight in the face and goes, "Stop." And I think that it was more just Solomon knowing how to read people.
Well, it makes sense. And also, I mean, Solomon is not a monster. He may be a very good evil guy, but I never saw him as a monster because just because he said he had given poison to their granddaughter, it doesn't mean he did.
I
He
know.
doesn't need to.
By the
I mean,
way, I worked that into a story the other day. I didn't like blatantly say it, but I was thinking of you as I was working on that part of the story.
I mean,
Like,
he has such reputation that he doesn't even need to do things anymore.
I kind of hope that they approach that because honestly, it was so funny when I was doing my rewatch today. I was sitting there watching it, and I realized that in my head I've been referring to him as Matthias. I'm going, no, stop, Jen, stop. I'm trying to put the brakes on. I'm starting to warm to this man, and if he really did poison a child, I don't want to warm to this man.
You know what? I don't think he did. I never thought he did. At first I thought, oh my God, what a horrible. And then I started thinking about it and saying, there was no need because he knew Dembe was going to go in and he knew that. And we never even said, oh yeah, well, your daughter received a visit and no, oh, she received the vaccine. No explanation.
Yeah.
So to me, that is kind of like, yeah, you know what? I don't believe you. And I never saw Solomon as a monster. I saw him as a guy that is a very good operative. He has an enormous capacity for violence. But hello, I got a lot of characters in the show that have an enormous capacity for violence.
Welcome to the Blacklist.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's not that he's. I think he like Red needs to be thought of as omniscient and infallible. But Solomon needs to be thought of as so cruel and so horrible that everybody abhors him. But I think that there is humanity there, and I think we might start to see it.
Oh, I definitely think so. Because, I mean, otherwise, why would you ever want to cheer for him? I mean, I don't know if you're a comic book fan or anything, but they came out with a movie, I think last year. It was called Suicide Squad. It was about a lot of the DC villains banding together and basically saving the world. And these horrible villains that you love to hate in the comic books, there's still massively redeeming qualities within them because you have to be, people won't connect with them otherwise. If they're just straight up monsters, you're never going to connect well with them and you're not going to want to cheer for them. Solomon's on the more or less the good side here, so he's going to have redeeming qualities or people won't care. Then he'll get a bolt in the head and people go, okay. I mean, he's an anti-hero, but I mean, like, Red has hugely redeeming qualities. Tom's an anti-hero, hugely redeeming qualities. If they're going to make Solomon into an anti-hero, he's going to have those redeeming qualities. And
Even
I
if
think that
they're
he
very hidden.
yeah. Oh, and I don't think he wants people to see them. Agreed. And that's why I've been so hesitant. I've had people ask me if I want him to be, redeemed, if I want a redemption arc for him, and my immediate reaction was, no, he poisoned a child. Absolutely not. And I thought, it's the Blacklist. Like you've been saying, twists and turns, not everything's always as it seems. And I'm going to withhold judgment on if I want a redemption arc for him or not until I see the redemption arc, because they have so much they haven't tapped into with his character. because for as much screen time as Solomon has had all through season 3 and into season no, he was just in season 3. For all the screen time that he had, we found very, in fact, no, we found out a little bit personal about him and his past, but not a lot.
Mm-mm.
I mean, we don't know any more than the government does, I don't think. And I will be very excited to see that pan out in Redemption over the next 6 episodes.
Yeah, I think that I don't have such a dark view. I used to until I realized, did he really even need to poison the girl, or he just needed to say? And then I said, honestly, he didn't even need to.
And I hope you're right. I 100% hope you're right. I just don't want to put my heart on it yet.
I mean, look at the things Red does. He makes believe that he lets Liz believe that he killed Emma, because that is, what is needed for what he wants to do. He lets Liz believe that, he lets Isabella Stone at first believe that, the husband is dead, and then says, I'm not going to let you see him because you became a monster. So I think that there is a lot to be said about that. Now, talk to me about Ness.
One of the questions...
She's hard to read, that woman.
She is. And I keep waiting for, the sledgehammer to crack down and open something up for us. And I think it's going to take a sledgehammer. I want to know what the little lightning bolt is on her wrist.
Uh-huh.
Because that's not new. I don't know if it's actually Tawny's. It may be Tawny's. I have no idea, because we've seen Ryan's lions on his back before. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about, because I heard her in an interview say that Nez was over, I think, in the Middle East. I mean, in war, so I would assume in the Middle East. And that she felt like she should have died over there and she's living on borrowed time. And so I'm really curious to hear her story and why she got out of the Navy, why she went basically rogue. I mean, she has to be just an off-the-charts intelligent human being. She's a weapons specialist. I mean, complete and total badass. Solomon has said that she could kick his ass, which cracks me up. And, by the way, those two have such a repertoire between them. I guess it comes from the fact that they worked together before Tom came in, mm-hmm. But you don't see that kind of connection with Dumont. It's just between the two of them. They work very well together, and I love that that little comment by Solomon when they thought that their covers were blown in the airport. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Or something like that.
Yeah, they got the plans immediately. Like, okay, I got that. She had the weapons in her. Oh,
and I love that. It just, she starts pulling that out, and I'm going, thank you. That's awesome. A friend of mine and I that we used to write together, that she had a character that had weapons like that, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, she's a real badass. And she's, I think that we're going to see a few character development things. You're going to see that she has a point where she's very vulnerable. But I think in general, I mean, I think that that's a survivor's guilt complex. They think that they should have died, so they really don't care. And I think that that's why she took the mission. I don't think it was out of loyalty or anything. It's like, she's in, and, she should have died, so she takes whatever. And she figures out, if it's my time to die, I'll die.
Do you think Solomon's loyal?
I am starting to think that he is. For all he professes to go to the highest bidder, I think that, I mean, Solomon was so cool when he thought that he was going to be killed, and he says, run, and he says, nope. And, it's this utter lack of concern. And I also think that there is a similar story to Ness, that he's unconcerned if he dies or not. Yeah. So I don't know that is loyalty, or is that's what he does. That's what he loves to do. And he just does. And I think that Scotty commands his loyalty because Scotty is smart and gets some missions that appeal to him.
Yeah, I think she's loyal to them. And so, I mean, we saw a piece of that last week when she's walking Tom in. She goes, Matthias Solomon, he's one of my best, and you shot him. I've already spoken to him about this. Like, she cleared it with her employee before bringing Tom in. I mean, that's kind of big.
Well, I think it was like, okay, you're going to be a good boy with him. I mean, you did shoot his wedding. So,
yeah, on Scotty's order.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I don't know how detailed Scotty. Maybe Scotty gives a little more detailed orders to Solomon these days. Okay, you're not allowed to commit like mass atrocities. Stop killing civilians. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I never got quite the feeling that was what Scotty wanted. I think he was using it to kind of clear some of his pending matters.
Yeah, and I wonder if those operatives that Solomon used during that whole spiel, during the wedding fiasco, mm-hmm. because it was really interesting. They had no connection to Halcyon. They couldn't.
Oh, yeah, they did. They did, because that's what they tracked them to the...
Yeah, but it was only through the earpiece. It was through the earpiece. The individual himself... They thought he died over in the Middle East.
And one of those little lovely things that you put on the that you posted about Halcyon, it does say that they've been the biggest hires of veterans. Yeah. So probably people who are so messed up that for them going to the civilian life is just beyond.
Well, it's not even messed up. Like, I've got buddies in the military that when whenever their contract comes up and they talk about getting out, they're like, what would I do? This is the life I live. This is what I do.
But that guy left the wife, became like he had died and was an operative. So I think that those are like the perfect operatives for them. They give them a life that they like, and they probably provide for their wives, and that's it.
Which I think is fascinating, because I bet Tom is an oddity. I bet Tom is very much an oddity in there, that he has a family at home, he has a wife, a child. Now, I doubt he broadcasts that, mm-hmm. But I kind of find it entertaining to think about if he would be the rumored person around the office. Oh, there's the dude with the wife,
Well, especially if it turns out that Scotty is really an undercover operative, and she has been just running the longest undercover op for a long time. Because Howard does say that she, targeted him, has been using him. So, there is a possibility that Scotty that was the name. And like Tom, she just kept it. And, mm-hmm. That's what she's been doing. Or she hasn't completed the op, so she's still doing it.
Yep.
What do you think about Dumont? I love Dumont. Again, use a Tasty. I love that Tasty.
That's his thing now.
Yeah.
Adrian's been using it over on Twitter, too. It cracks me up.
It's just funny because he's like, he's like a kid when he like tells him, about the cloak of invisibility and all that. It's just so much fun. He's like a kid. It's like a Ram Light, because it doesn't have the same vulnerability as a Ram, but he definitely but he's also has that little bit of kid-like wonder about things.
Yeah, I think we're gonna find out a lot more about him. I think he's probably a whole lot deeper than even just that. And that's one of the things I got out of the interviews that they released right before the pilot episode, was that every one of the main cast is incredibly deeply layered. And I don't remember if it was Famke talking about that. One of them was talking about how deeply layered every character is. It might have been Ryan. And I was just like, yes, thank you. And I think that's one of the things I like about it,
We see a lot of that when Dumont is presented with a 6-digit code, and he is like terrified. You see his eyes. He's like, I'm going to fail them. Yeah. It's going to be on me that I couldn't get them out.
They're going to get shot, and it's going to be my fault. Yeah.
And then Ness comes and does a wrestler on the door. It's like, how are you going to break this?
I love that. I'm the 6th digit. Boom.
Yeah, I'll just rip the door out.
Oh, yes, I love
wrestler.
her.
I actually liked him as a wrestler, because at first when they introduced her. Is it? I don't know if it was her or it was supposed to be Elise. It was supposed to be love interest for one of the post office, or maybe it was Elise. But I thought, oh, I tell you what. I mean, she and wrestler could actually have a really. I mean, they have kind of like the same mindset. It was interesting because I'm not a shipper, but hey, that I one I could see working. Of course, she's in the law. He's in the law. She's definitely not in the law.
I still love the idea you've talked about working all of them together and having them liaison with the post office. It just, I mean, they're gonna have to do something because if they're officing out of New York, I mean, poor Tom. What is he flying the private jet back home?
Probably he probably have a helicopter bring him.
That would that would be awesome. Now, I mean, once Scotty finds out who he is, sure, but like right now is just an operative. I could still see them doing it.
I think they would. I think they would.
I could see it.
Because it's like probably he said, "Hey, pal, I got my family, and if you want, I'll work for you." But I imagine their salaries are also in the seven figures.
Yeah, I have a feeling they get paid pretty well. I've got this mental image of Tom going back, babe, we're set.
Well, also he probably knew it because he was the highest paid,
yeah.
the best operative for the major, so he probably knew. I mean, considering he lasted all that long without working after in season 3, that probably means that even though Liz took a big bunch of it, he still probably had money because Liz went and found the corporations where he had money and took it all. We never knew if Liz actually took it and kept it, or she donated to charity, or we
This
have
is
no
what I'm
idea.
getting in the divorce.
Who knows? Maybe she just kept that in there for a rainy day. I mean, Liz is not exactly Miss Law. However, she likes to appear like she is.
Oh, excuse me.
So I think that pretty much wraps up. Do you have anything to say?
I don't. It was a great episode. Like I said, second round through, I liked it a whole lot better. I don't know if I was just in a mood last night when it was on, or what the deal was, but
I think when you're expecting, they also had a scene that they caught when they probably put it in another episode where Scotty tasks out Solomon in finding out about her son. So I think that also kind of like got you thinking, oh, I'm going to get something. And I do think that we got mythology. It's just not apparent.
yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think when I realized that there was some in there, I felt a lot better. Like it's an emotional reaction. I'm willing to admit that.
Yeah. Yes, some of them are going to be very different from the Blacklist. They have to be. And some of them are not going to be that obvious for people who are not fans of the genre, and for those who are fans of the genre, it's going to feel like, oh my god, they did it again. Yeah, but that's because you've seen 1,500 movies like that. There's only so much people can do. So I think that all in all, I loved it, and I'm just looking forward to next episode.
Yep. And so that about wraps us up. Then you can catch us on we're posted on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can leave us messages on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And we'd love to hear back from you guys. We love chatter and conversation. And a few people sent in theories last week. And so those are fun. If you have theories, if you have ideas where you think it's going, where you'd like it to go, share theories with us. We love that stuff.
Yeah, maybe we can even go next week when I'm not feeling like my head is a few feet above me. And we can discuss some of them.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
All right. Until next week, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.